you're swimming in the ocean and hear this super loud rumbling sound, run fast. It just might be the bloop. So what's the bloop? The bloop is the name given to the loudest sound ever recorded in the ocean, and when you hear it, you're never going swimming again. At first, scientists thought the sound came from a marine animal like a whale, but this sound was much louder than any sound a whale could make. The frequency actually consisted of rapid vibration similar to other marine animals, kind of like whales. But what makes the bloop sound even scarier is the fact that it was picked up by sensors spaced out over 3,000 miles apart in the ocean. Many people claim that it came from this super massive creature living in the ocean, and no, it wasn't your If the bloop was actually a real creature, people estimate it to be over 300 feet long. But scientists actually claim that the sound comes from icebergs breaking in Antarctica. Here's the sound. If you think the bloop is scary, wait till you see these next creatures. They get scary as we go through this video, and the last one's the scariest of all. And guys, if you really like the bloop, I made this bloop plushie just for you guys. Look at it. Links in the description. In 2003, sonar scans near the Puerto Rico Trench, one of the deepest part of the Atlantic, picked up movements that resembled a living creature the size of a skyscraper. The locals actually named this creature El Gran Maja. El Gran Maja is estimated to be over 2,000 feet long, which means it's twice as big as the bloop. Some say it actually looks like a giant gulper eel with a tail. It was first spotted in 1563 by a Spanish sailor named Diego. He said that while on a research expedition on a clear blue day, the ocean turned violent and the sky turned black out of nowhere. At first, he thought it was just a storm, but as he looked out into the sea, he described what he saw was this massive beast as large as 12 ships in the distance. Diego said that it had a wide-shaped head, 6 small white eyes, and a huge mouth with extremely long, sharp yellow teeth. Many years later, in the 1990s, a submarine crew claimed they encountered a giant sea serpent that came out of the deep ocean smiling at them. But before they could capture the creature on camera, it quickly vanished back into the ocean. Some researchers believe El Gran Maja might not be a singular creature at all, but a species that has mastered the art of deep-sea camouflage, blending in with the ocean floor for decades at a time. Locals actually claim that when the ocean is unusually quiet at night, you can sometimes hear a low hum or vibration. Some say it's the heartbeat of El Gran Maja. Even modern day shipping crews have reported weird malfunctions in their equipment when passing through certain parts of the Caribbean. GPS glitches, depth readings off the charts, and strange shadows moving beneath the hull of the ship. And unlike the bloop, El Gran Maja doesn't make any noise, it watches. With 6 glowing eyes and a mouth full of long, big yellow teeth, like me! Oh! If that massive sea serpent just gave you nightmares, buckle up, because Japan just said, hold my ramen. Of course it's Japan, bro. Bruh. Japan fishermen and sailors in the South Antarctic Oceans have reported sightings of a strange looking creature they call the Ningen. The Ningen is said to be a creature that are kind of like mermaids or sirens and trick you into going in the water and bring you to your death. But the Ningen is actually so much bigger, like 60 to 100 feet long. In 2005, Google Earth captured this strange looking sea monster near Namibia, but people claimed that it was just an iceberg. Then in 2007, some Japanese researchers saw a creature near their ship and they thought it was a submarine. But as they got closer, the creature quickly vanished into the waves. In 2010, some Japanese researchers picked up this large creature on camera with small eyes and a smiling mouth lying on the ocean floor. Some said it was just an unusual rock formation that had 2 small sponges where the eyes would be. Others claimed that it was just a snaggletooth sea snake. And no, it wasn't me! Also in 2010, this image was captured showing this large humanoid sea creature captured swimming in the ocean. Almost all people who see the Ningen claim that it had a large head with a smiling mouth and 2 human hands with a long whale-like tail. Some even say that the Ningen can walk upright on land, kinda like a human. But scientists claim that the people have misidentified the Ningen, and what you actually see are beluga whales, iceberg, or maybe even giant squids. Since most of the sightings are said to be at night, it's very difficult to get clear photos since the ocean is basically pitch black at night. One conclusion is said that the Ningen is a new form of marine species we haven't discovered yet. Since we have only discovered about 10 to 20% of the ocean, it is possible that there is some new scary creature living in the deep cold waters of the ocean. For now, we call it the Ningen, which means human in Japanese. Since we're already in Japan, we may as well talk about the Omibozu, one of the ocean's most passive-aggressive demons. The water goes dead silent like the ocean forgot how to exist. That's your only warning. Da-boom! Waves explode out of nowhere and your ship is done. The Umibozu appear right after the water's calm when they are known to stir up the water, then rush to crash the ship. But that's not even the scariest part though. Some people said they sometimes will ask you for a barrel so they can drink some water. But what they really do is pour the water into your ship while they watch your ship slowly sink. Like it's pranking you while you die. Oh, scary! Some say that Umibozu does this just to watch how people panic, like the ocean version of a Twitch streamer. These legendary creatures are also known as sea monks. This is because they're gigantic and bald, like me. Some say they have snake-like limbs and have been seen by many fishermen over the years. Others claim they are smaller and often attack in groups, kinda like mermaids. Some eyewitnesses said they're towering black shadows with glowing eyes, but no visible face. Their long snake-like arms reach out of the mist like wet horror noodles. There's even a theory that every time someone dies mysteriously at sea, it's because an umebozu got bored and wanted some entertainment. So after hearing about a giant pale sea humanoid with human hands and a permanent smile, you'd think we peaked, but the ocean said, nah, let's bring out the OG boss fight. Right when you think the ocean couldn't get any more disrespectful, it throws tentacles at you the size of telephone poles. If you thought Antarctic mermaids were bad, wait till you meet the creature that eats whales for breakfast and ship crews for fun. Because while the Ningen and Umebozu might haunt your dreams, the Kraken is the reason sailors don't sleep at all. Of all the sea monsters, myth, and legends, the Kraken is the closest to being real and is even scarier than the Bloop and Megalodon. So what exactly is the Kraken? For centuries, stories of a massive sea creature have haunted sailors across the open seas. Some claim that it was so big it could even cause whirlpools that would suck entire ships down. In the 1700s, Vikings claimed they saw sea monsters that rivaled their ships in size. They claimed that their ships were pulled underwater by a huge creature with long arms or octopus-like tentacles. In 1873, some fishermen saw a mass floating before them. Once it got closer, they discovered that the creature had the beak the size of a 6-gallon keg, tentacles longer than 2 men, and the ability to spew ink. Although the beast was able to escape the 2 men, they did hack off 2 of its tentacles. There were even stories of fishermen seeing the flaming eyes of the sea that would give them nightmares. I mean, it's the ocean, bro. Of course it's gonna give you nightmares. Even in modern times, there are still stories of mysterious sea creatures with long arms that attack ships and submarines. Now, there are giant squids which are actually big enough to attack sperm whales, since sperm whales actually hunt them for food. But there are actually different versions and stories of what the Kraken would actually look like. In Pirates of the Caribbean, it looked more like a giant octopus. In Clash of the Titans, which relates back to Greek mythology, it was more of a giant creature that could stand on its legs and take out the entire cities on the coast. In July 2012, scientists filmed a massive sea creature 55 meters long and 2,000 feet deep in the ocean. This creature was a giant squid, but was estimated to only be a baby version of how big it could actually get. And yeah, science says giant squid. So yeah, science calls the Kraken a giant squid. But hey, scientists also call Pluto a planet, then they change their mind. So who knows, maybe. There's even a theory that the Kraken is actually a colossal squid, which is even bigger and more terrifying than the giant squid. And the worst part, we've only seen one in decent condition. The rest, shredded like calamari confetti at 4,000 feet deep in the ocean. Some deep sea researchers actually believe there's a version of the Kraken that evolved in complete darkness. That means no light, no color, just a floating blind death machine with arms longer than school buses and a brain smart enough to play with its food. But also, let's not forget this beautiful nightmare fuel. A squid's tentacles can still move after they're cut off. That's right, the Kraken has respawn energy. Oh my god! So yeah, maybe the Kraken was a giant squid, or maybe the squid is just the Kraken's awkward little cousin. And the next real boss is still hiding down there, waiting for the sequel. For thousands of years, sailors told stories of a massive sea beast that could wrap around the entire earth and swallow ships whole. But what if I told you giant sea monsters were actually real? 2008, paleontologists found something in Peru's desert that made them question everything. They found the fossils of a giant whale they wanted to name the Leviathan. Since that name was already being used to classify another sea creature, they call it the Leviathan. The Leviathan was a whale that was the ocean's apex predator and was big enough to hunt megalodons for breakfast. This colossal beast looked like a giant sperm whale and had teeth over a foot long in both jaws. Their teeth were so massive that just one tooth weighs more than your entire head, and bro's bite force was even greater than a T-Rex. We're talking 40,000 pounds per square inch. Leviathan whales hunted in pods like modern sperm whales, but each one was 60 feet of pure destruction. Imagine a whole squad of rage with daggers for teeth and hungrier than queso on a diet swimming in the same water as you. What makes them even scary is that they even had echolocation so advanced they could see a megalodon's heartbeat from miles away. While megalodons were out here thinking they own the ocean, the Leviathan whale said bet and demolished everything in sight. They're considered to be one of the biggest known predators to ever live in the ocean, and they even sound freaky. What if you were swimming in the ocean and heard this sound? Megalodon has actually been extinct for over 2 million years, or has it? 10 million years ago, the Megalodon ruled the ocean as the top apex predator, but in recent years, rumors of the Megalodon sightings have persisted. In 2012, during a rescue operation, a massive shark was spotted, which estimated the shark to be over 60 feet long and is still unidentified to this day. In 2022, some whale researchers claimed to have seen this massive shark over 60 feet long appear near their ship, but other scientists claimed it was just a whale shark. But the researchers said that due to the fin size and shape, they assumed that it couldn't have been a whale shark. Also in 2022, some scientists discovered a shark graveyard off the coast of Australia. Of course it was Australia, bro. As they were dragging their nets gathering animals to study, they were shocked when they found hundreds of shark teeth. Some of the shark teeth they found belonged to makos, great whites, and a shark they believed to have evolved from the megalodon. A single megalodon tooth is larger than a human hand, estimating them to be over 70 feet long and weigh over 140,000 pounds. That boy thick. Boy, he's thick! And with a bite force of over 40,000 pounds per square inch, it had the strongest bite force of any animal that ever existed. Not only could they bite a whale in half, but they could also swallow a human whole. But scientists just discovered something crazy, and this is gonna blow your mind. Most people think the megalodon looked like a great white shark, but that's not what the megalodon actually looked like. Yeah, Hollywood got it wrong. Go figure. A great white shark is actually made for burst speed for their hunting strategy, but since the megalodon was a much bigger beast, they were way slower than a great white shark. The megalodon needed to eat about 2,500 pounds of food per day, which is the same as a humpback whale. So in order for these sharks to be more efficient, their bodies wouldn't be these thick round beasts, but rather longer and skinnier, kind of like a lemon shark. But this actually means that the megalodon was even more massive than we thought. Scientists used to estimate the megalodon was about 60 feet long, but a recent study has now shown that they can grow up to 82 feet long, which is the half the width of a football field. And with the release of this study, this means that a baby megalodon would actually be about 13 feet long at birth, which is the average size of an adult great white shark. This means at birth, a baby megalodon would eat just about any marine animal they came in contact with. Some people claim that the megalodon is hiding deep in the ocean's depths, but scientists have confirmed the megalodon would live closer to shallow water. The last megalodon was said to have gone extinct closer to about 10,000 years ago, puzzling scientists. But what actually killed the last megalodon? Most people will tell you that it was something big like a Leviathan or maybe Godzilla, but those are fake monsters. Well, technically some people call the Leviathan whale the Leviathan, but that's not completely accurate. The Leviathan whale is big enough and vicious enough to take out a megalodon, and they did live at the same time, but they aren't what killed off the megalodon. And what actually helped to kill off the megalodon was a faster moving, more vicious, and even deadlier shark. The great white shark. They basically outswam the megalodon for food and helped to contribute towards their extinction. But what do you guys think? Do you think the megalodon still exists today? This next sea demon was basically a prehistoric torpedo with teeth. This is the Mosasaurus. Most people think the Mosasaurus was a dinosaur, but they're not a dinosaur. It was a freaky looking marine reptile. Think of it like a homicidal sea lizard with a jetpack and really had a bad attitude. These things were literal sea dragons up to about 50 feet long. The one in Jurassic World was juiced and bigger than the real thing. But hey, Hollywood got a Hollywood, right? It did have a deadly mouth, and yeah, worse than mine. A double hinged jaw with sharp teeth on its palate. So if it ever bit you, you weren't getting out. You were entering a literal meat blender. It didn't just bite its prey, it gripped, it shook, and it ragdolled everything from sea turtles to fish to other mosasaurs. Even sharks stayed out of its way. It was the apex predator of its time with zero chill and had no natural enemies. Basically, it was the CEO of the ocean and fired everyone. Since it was a reptile, it had to surface to breathe. Imagine being a murder submarine that had to pop up like, hey guys, be right back, gotta inhale before I injure real quick. And with this long tail, it was actually built for speed. This thing was moving like a missile underwater. Not a slow creeper, a fast chaser. And what's really creepy is that it didn't lay eggs. It gave live birth in water. Baby Mosasaurus spawned into carnage and immediately became ocean killers. Lucky for us, it went extinct with the rest of the crew about 66 million years ago. And if you think the Megalodon or Mosasaurus is scary, wait till you see this thing. Straight up nightmare fuel. This is the Dunkleosteus, also called the Chunky Donkey. Hey, that's what they call me after I eat a dozen donuts. Anyway, this beast had a thick armored plated head that made it somewhat slow. It didn't have any teeth, kind of like your grandma, and it was freaky looking. Instead of teeth, it had these super sharp jawbones that could crush anything. They swam across the oceans of the world at a time when the world actually looked different. Fossils were actually found in Ohio. Of course it was Ohio, bro. Scientists actually estimate this thick beast to have been around 14 to 20 feet long and a top apex predator in its time. They did go extinct over 300 million years ago, but the coelacanth and horseshoe crab have been around for over 400 million years and are still around today. So who knows, maybe the Chunky Donkey might be swimming in an ocean next to you. So after prehistoric sea tanks with ball and blade jaws and Ohio trauma, let's talk about something a little closer to home. While the Dunkleosteus would rip you in half before you could scream, this next creature has the entire world arguing about what it actually is. Do you believe the stories of the Loch Ness Monster are true or are they fake? For over 100 years now, stories of the Loch Ness Monster, also called Nessie, have been told and are still being told to this day. The story generated from Lake Loch Ness in Scotland, but put a shrimp on a Barbie, mate. Most legends actually die out when there's no proof, but Nessie said, I'm built different, fam. When you think of the Loch Ness Monster, you probably picture this photo, which was taken in 1932, but it was proven to be fake. The photographer used a toy submarine with a plastic head on it to fake the photo. But since then, many others have claimed to have seen a large sea creature in or around the lake. And since we now have new technology, more recent sightings have been reported. This photo was taken just a few years ago, but it's just been released to the public. And this video was taken in Ireland by a YouTuber named Colin Malarkey. It looks like a massive creature swimming across the lake, and this kind of looks like his head. Most people said it was just a whale. Some say it's a sign of Loch Ness Monster, while other claims it's just a turtle while floating along. But if you look at the boats and waves, you can see the water isn't moving that fast. There's actually been other footage to show serpent or dragon-like creatures washed up on beaches around the world. And also in the state of Georgia, this sea creature washed up on the shore. Some people claim the Loch Ness Monster is just some type of large eel creature in the lake. Many others claim the Loch Ness Monster is actually an Elasmosaurus. But that's impossible since the Elasmosaurus neck isn't strong enough to lift the head out the water. And I hope not, because this is what an Elasmosaurus sounds like. The Bloop and El Gran Maja are some of the biggest I've mentioned so far in this video, but this next one could swallow them both at one time like me eating a hot dog. This is the Sea Eater. So what's the Sea Eater? It's this massive creature with 2 huge arms that helps it keep upright and is over 21,000 feet long. Yeah, 4 miles of pure nope. Since the ocean is actually over 30,000 feet deep, the Sea Eater is said to be in the deep ocean lurking in its depths. Its mouth's always open, devouring everything in its path. Even the Bloop. It was first spotted in 1862 by fishermen who described seeing a massive pulsing shadow beneath the waves, followed by tsunamis and catastrophic destruction across the coast. No storm, no warning, just waves taller than buildings and entire villages wiped off the map. Then in 1927, a woman named Evelyn Mary said she saw a moving mountain on the horizon. Not a wave, not a whale, a mountain. Alive and breathing, shifting across the water like the ocean itself waking up. And in 1930, the last known sighting came from a fisherman who swore he saw a creature so large it stretched from one end of the skyline to the other. That same day, a massive tsunami struck the coast. Coincidence? Maybe, but also, maybe run! And seeing it isn't the only thing that's scary. Wait till you hear what it sounds like. And if you think the ocean was scary now, just wait till you see what else is down there, and the land wasn't safe either. From a snake longer than a school bus to something so terrifying that even a T-Rex will run crying to us mama. But hold up, before we get to that crazy stuff, let me tell you about the biggest lie Hollywood ever told. If you think the T-Rex sounded like this, you're wrong. That sound came from movies like Jurassic Park and others, but I'm gonna play you the sound of what a T-Rex actually sounded like, and it's so much scarier than what's in the movies. Now the T-Rex was 40 feet of pure I'm about to end your entire existence walking around like it owned the planet, and it did back then. This thick beast had teeth the size of railroad spikes and could bite down with enough force to turn you into a pancake of around 13,000 pounds of bone-crushing pressure. Woo! Woo! Say that 10 times fast, bro.
Stop it. Get some help.
Now, despite being the size of a house with legs, the T-Rex had arms smaller than mine after I skipped leg day. Look at me, bro. But here's the absolute scariest fact about the T-Rex roar. What the movies got wrong was the roar. The issue with the movies is that reptiles don't roar. Mammals roar, like lions, tigers. Imagine hearing this sound. While T-Rex was stomping around being a land menace, this next thing was slithering through the jungle like your worst nightmare had a baby with a garden hose from hell.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
If you thought your ex was a snake, wait till you meet the Titanoboa. This 50-foot long note rope could wrap around a school bus like it was putting on a bracelet. Imagine the biggest python you've ever seen, then imagine it ate steroids for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 10 years straight. The Titanoboa was a 50-foot snake that basically was nature's way of saying, you know what? Let's make something that can squeeze the life out of anything dumb enough to breathe. And this thick thing was 2,500 pounds of pure I'm gonna squeeze you like a tube of toothpaste energy. The Titanoboa didn't need venom because why poison your food when you can just give it the world's biggest hug of life? So one squeeze from that note rope and you'll be flatter than my jokes, bro. So we talked about the ocean's bone-crushing maniac, but what happens when something decides it wants to dominate both land and water? Meet the Spinosaurus. This is what you get when the T-Rex bigger, angrier cousin decides to also become a professional swimmer. Nature's answer to what's the most extra thing we can possibly create to scare everyone. This 50-foot flex machine walked around with a giant sail on its back while it was advertising its own death services. Pure billboard energy on its back that screamed main character syndrome from miles away. But here's where it gets absolutely unhinged. This thing had a crocodile head, bear claws, and the swimming skills of an Olympic athlete who's been hitting the gym since birth. This fact broke scientists' brains, not mine though. This thing wasn't some regular land dinosaur. It was basically a crocodile that hit the gym for 10 million years. The Spinosaurus would just slide in rivers and be like, surprise! Your peaceful swim just became a horror movie and snatch up a 50-foot shark like they were chicken nuggets. Like me! And this is what your worst fever dream sounded like. If I heard that while swimming, I would be out that water so fast I would have accidentally invented teleportation. Now you might think that a dinosaur that both hunts land and water was Pete crazy, right? Wrong. Meet the Ryzenosaurus. And no, that wasn't my nickname in high school. This thing is basically what happens when nature gets really confused and decides to build a 16-foot tall dinosaur with claws longer than baseball bats, then makes it a vegetarian. What? This thick beast weighed more than your entire family combined and had claws that were 3 feet long. That's longer than your arm, bro. But it spent the entire day eating salad like some kind of prehistoric vegan Karen.
I'm saying eating animals Wrong.
Imagine meeting something like that in the wild that's tall enough to look into your second story window, has claws that can slice through a car door, yeet you into the afterlife, and then find out it just wants to eat your garden. Here's the part that makes zero sense. Those 3-foot razor claws weren't for fighting. This thing was literally using machetes to pick fruit like some kind of crustaceous hippie. The Ryzenosaurus was basically nature's way of saying, what if we gave something the ultimate weapon package, but all it wants to do is garden and live its best introvert vegan life? Good thing this walking contradiction went extinct, because imagine trying to tell your friends why you can't have a vegetable garden anymore. Now you might think that a giant vegetarian dinosaur with kitchen knives fingers was the weirdest thing evolution ever cooked up, but wait until you meet the thing that would make you burn down every forest on the planet, the Velociraptor. What happens when nature decides to pack maximum violence into a 6-foot feathered package? Except with the intelligence of a serial killer. Not me though. Now thanks to Jurassic Park, everyone thinks these things were human-sized death machines, but the real Velociraptor was actually about the size of a large dog, which somehow makes it even more terrifying. Picture this, a turkey-sized predator with the brain power to open doors, working coordinated attacks, and probably figure out your Wi-Fi password. And this is what pure calculated chaos sounded like. These feathered nightmares had sickle claws for disemboweling prey and were smart enough to probably hold grudges like your ex. Good thing they went extinct, because imagine trying to keep these things out your garbage cans when they're smart enough to solve puzzles and petty enough to remember every time you forgot to feed them. We've covered water cycle paths and land stompers and jungle squeeze machines, but what about something that could actually sneak up on you? The next menace came in with furs and fangs and a whole lot of nope. You think house cats are evil. Meet their great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather who had sword collection for teeth, the saber-toothed tiger, aka Smilodon, aka nature's final try me button. What happens when a regular car decides to become a professional assassin with a serious slasher smile? The saber-toothed tiger was basically a regular tiger that went to the dentist and asked for the villain upgrade package. Maybe I should do that. This 600-pound murder machine had canine teeth that were 11 inches long. That's longer than your phone and 1,000 times more dangerous than your screen addiction. But you can keep watching me, bro. And those ridiculous fangs weren't just for show either. This thing could open up its jaw 120 degrees, which means it could basically unhinge its face like a snake. I could barely open my mouth wide enough for a burger without dislocating something. Built low to the ground with sharp limbs and stubby tails, Smilodon looked like a lion that skipped leg day, but maxed out on upper body. These guys didn't chase, they ambushed. Scientists believe Smilodon used those ridiculous teeth to stab large prey in the throat or belly and just sat back and watched while it bled out. That's just gangsta, man. And they weren't hunting squirrels either. They were out here taking down mammoths, mastodons, bisons, you know, starter Pokemon for cavemen. This is what pure terror sounded like. Sounds almost as bad as your dad in the bathroom. Now here's where it gets spicy. Fossils pulled out of Labrura tar pits show these guys weren't just lone hunters. They had squad behavior. Yes, group hunts, like a prehistoric feline gang.
What did he say?
You think geese are aggressive? Meet their absolutely feral ancestor who took angry birds to a whole new level. The terror bird was 10 feet tall and had a beak that could crack skulls like walnuts. Imagine Big Bird, instead of teaching you the alphabet, it's teaching you how to run for your life. Now here's what's crazy. Scientists actually compare these things to ostriches. Except ostriches are basically calm vegetarian cousins who went to the therapy and found inner peace. Terror birds had the same long legs and flightless body plan as an ostrich. But instead of eating plants and minding their own business, at one point they were one of South America's top predators. And their beaks weren't just big, they were literally designed like medieval war hammers. They had eagle-like beaks and ostrich-sized bodies was basically nature's way of saying, what if we made the most terrifying bird possible? And this is what cancel all outdoor plans sounded like. These death machines ran 30 miles an hour. That's faster than I run to Taco Bell. They couldn't fly, but they didn't need to. When they could chase down a horse and turn it into lunch with one strike, the terror bird actually went extinct when mammals got bigger and smarter. Basically, everything else said, you know what? We're tired of being terrorized by an angry, oversized chicken. So yeah, since that giant murder chicken got clapped, nature being the drama queen that is goes, oh, you thought that was it? And immediately drops a patch update, now featuring wolves with anger issues. The dire wolf. This is what happens when regular wolves got really serious about their villain era and became ridiculously overpowered. These things were like modern wolves, except someone hit the make everything worse button and gave them jaws that could crush bones like you crush sunflower seeds. This is what You're Not Escaping sounded like. If you heard that howl, it wasn't just one wolf calling either. It was the entire neighborhood watch telling everyone dinner was about to be served, and guess who's on the menu? These absolute menaces lived alongside early humans, which means our ancestors had to deal with super wolves while trying to invent basic tools and figure out fire while your grandma still can't figure out how to use FaceTime.
Can you hear me?
And here's where it gets absolutely wild. Some company thinks it's a genius idea to resurrect dire wolves using DNA and modern wolf genetics. They're calling us de-extinction, which sounds way too much like something that would happen right before a zombie apocalypse starts. Now we can barely handle regular wolves. Now someone wants to add the premium tier version. I don't know about you, but when I see on the news scientists successfully resurrect dire wolf, I want to move to Mars and never look back. Some things should stay extinct, like my hairline. But before mammals took over the planet, there was something else that made wolves look like cute, harmless house pets. Meet the Dionicus. When a chicken decides to become a professional hitman and gets really, really good at it. This thing was only 11 to 13 feet long, but don't let the size fool you. It was pure concentrated murder energy with a 5-foot sickle claw designed specifically for ending your subscription to life. Imagine a Velociraptor, but bigger, smarter, and with the attitude of someone who just found out you ate their lunch from the office fridge. That signature hooked toe wasn't designed for flexing, it was for gutting prey open like a zipper. This is what a prehistoric nightmare sounded like. The Dionicus didn't just hunt though, it pack hunted. So if you heard that sound, it meant that there were probably 5 or more of these feathered demons hiding in the bushes planning to murk you. They went extinct, which is honestly probably the only reason we can walk around without riot gear. Imagine trying to have a picnic when there's a pack of chicken-sized serial killers with built-in switchblades running around. And yeah, if you thought a Velociraptor looked big in Jurassic Park, you're right. That's basically a Dionicus in cosplay. Hollywood just hit the size up button and ran with it. While Dionicus was speed running the murdered chicken meta down in the shrubbery, the crustaceous skybox unlocked its secret sky boss, the Quetzalcoatlus. It was basically a flying giraffe with wings. Picture a skyscraper in God mode camping the respawn zone and flexing on gravity itself. This thing had a 35-foot wingspan, wider than most people's houses, and ruled the skies like a feathered dictator. Imagine looking up at the sky and seeing this thing blotting out the sun like a prehistoric fighter jet that skipped Stacy training on purpose. This is what death from above sounded like. Now you might think flying death from above was nature's weirdest flex, but what if I told you there was something so bizarre even other creatures looked at it and said, bro, what happened to you? And no, it wasn't me.
You sure about that?
Here's the Platybelodon. When an elephant decides to become a construction worker, it had the most ridiculous face mod in all natural history. This thing actually looked like a regular elephant until you got to its face, which was basically a shovel attached to a trunk. Like someone took an elephant and said, you know what this thing needs? A built-in snowplow. Now guys, I wasn't gonna put this thing in this video, to be honest, because it's kind of hard to come up with something to say for it. Imagine trying to explain this to someone. Yeah, it's an elephant, but its lower jaw is basically a massive spoon that uses to scoop up plants like the world's most extra salad server. But I honestly only decided to put in this video because it looks like my sister.
Got him!
But you want to see something that's even scarier than my sister before coffee? How about something with longer teeth, armor for skin, and has the emotional stability of a substitute teacher who caught you chewing gum in class? The Sarco was a crocodile that said, you know what? I'm gonna be 40 feet long and make everything else my lunch, and somehow actually pulled it off. This thing was literally called Super Croc by scientists, which is literally the most uncreative thing ever. But honestly, when you're looking at 8 tons of pure, I'll eat your boat in half a second's energy, creativity takes a back seat, fam. We're talking about a crocodile longer than a semi-truck that was basically running a 24/7 death tournament. The Sarco had a skull longer than your car and jaws that could snap a T-Rex in half like a pretzel stick. This thing didn't bite. It basically turned anything nearby into confetti, using only its mouth. But here's the most insane part though. This water-based war machine grew its entire life, so every birthday made it exponentially more terrifying. Hey, kind of like me! Imagine being a fish and seeing this leather submarine that's absolutely not here to play nice cruising towards you. You'd be praying for the meteor to hurry up and end it all. This aquatic nightmare finally went extinct, which honestly saved everyone from having to delete all their beach vacation photos and move inland permanently. But here's the thing, while these water monsters were terrorizing everything with gills, even if you move more inland, there's something far worse than you need to worry about. Meet the Carnotaurus. This is what happens when T-Rex smaller, faster, angrier cousin decides to become a professional sprinter with a horn obsession. This 25-foot disaster problem had the energy of someone who definitely peaked in high school and never got over it. 2 horns sticking out of his skull like it was cosplaying as the world's most terrifying bull that's auditioning for the scariest heavy metal band. It could run 35 miles an hour, which means it's basically a freight train with teeth that could catch up to you no matter how fast you thought you were. So even if you had a head start and were running like your life depended on it, this thing would lap you like you were still standing still. Imagine being chased by something that weighs as much as 3 cars, has horn like a demon, and can outrun Usain Bolt on his best day. The Carnotaurus had tiny arms that made T-Rex look like a bodybuilder, but it didn't matter because this thing was built for one purpose: running down prey and turning them into street pizza. This speed demon lived in South America and clearly set the standard for everything else the continent would produce. But you might think a hard speed demon was the worst South America had to offer, but this continent was apparently just getting warmed up with things that shouldn't exist department. Here's the Meganeura, a dragonfly that decided to become absolutely massive and turn the sky to everyone's personal hell. This sky menace had a wingspan of 2.5 feet, which is bigger than your gaming setup, and the energy of someone who absolutely refused to stay in their lane. Picture this, you're trying to enjoy a nice day outside and suddenly the sky goes dark because a dragonfly the size of a large large hawk is cruising over here looking for a snack, and that's you. And what made this thing full cursed, it was still just a dragonfly, which means it had those giant bug eyes that could track your every movement and the flying skills to basically appear out of nowhere. The Meganura lived when the earth was basically on steroids and decided to turn every insect into a personal nightmare. This massive bug went extinct when oxygen levels dropped, but imagine trying to enjoy a barbecue outside when dragonflies the size of pterodactyls are dive bombing your potato salad. So we covered flying insects from hell, but what if I told you there was something crawling around on the ground that made giant dragonflies look like a mere inconvenience? Let me introduce you to Megalania, a supersized Komodo dragon that treated the entire continent of Australia like it was personal all-you-can-eat buffet. This 20-foot lizard was basically a moving parking lot with teeth and had the personality of someone who definitely never learned to share. And no, it wasn't me this time. We're talking about a monitor lizard that weighed as much as a car and had venom that could drop an elephant. But wait, it gets much worse. Before the Megalania was terrorized in Australia, there was the Goggonops terrorizing everything else. The Goggonops was basically a wolf-crocodile hybrid that somebody fed nothing but Red Bull and had bad news for its entire life. This thing looked like it could hold a conversation about your hopes and dreams right before ending them. It had the head of a predator and the body plan of something that really enjoyed making everything else extinct. Both of these things basically looked at their respective time periods and said, you know what this era needs? More reasons for everything to live in constant fear. The Goggonops lived when early humans in Australia had to deal with car-sized venomous lizards while trying to figure out basic survival. No wonder Australia is still Australia, bro. But now imagine leaving the cursed outback thinking you're safe, only to end up in the forest where a literal King Kong knockoff used to roam. There's something really big and hairy that will scare you. And no, it's not your Let's talk about Bigfoot's real ancestor, the Gigantopithecus. Gigantopithecus was a 10-foot tall, 1,200-pound ape that makes your gym bro look like a toothpick. It was basically King Kong's less famous but equally terrifying cousin who lived in Asia and had the build of someone who definitely didn't skip leg day for 2 million years. Some people think it's still alive and hide in the woods taking blurry photos with tourists. We're still discovering new species every year, and this thing lived in some of the most remote forests on Earth. Maybe they're still out there living their best life. Whether Gigantopithecus is actually extinct or just become the ultimate introvert, one thing's for sure. If you're camping and hear this sound, maybe just pack it up and run, bro. What do you get when a bear, a sloth, and a forklift have an identity crisis together? Something that shouldn't exist, but did. You would cook up this overstuffed menace, the Megatherium, and wait until you hear what they sound like because it's so much scarier than how they look. Imagine a sloth the size of an elephant that could stand up and fight your entire family. This oversized creature was basically a massive vegetarian and looked like an ugly prehistoric panda or your grandma. This absolute beast weighed around 8,000 pounds and had claws that could slice through trees like they were pool noodles. These claws weren't for fighting though, they were for stripping bark and digging up roots like nature's excavator. But unlike modern sloths that move slower than your grandma getting out of bed, these things could actually move fast when they needed to. They were over 12 feet tall when standing and weighed as much as a car. We scientists believe that early humans might have actually hunted these giants to extinction. Imagine being a caveman with a pointy stick trying to take down something that looks like King Kong's cousin. Cave paintings even showed our ancestors going toe-to-toe with these creatures that could bench press a Honda Civic. These giants survived ice ages and saber-toothed cats but couldn't survive us, bro. You know us humans go human, bro. The last ones died out around the times humans showed up in South America. But there are stories from the locals in the Amazon who say they spotted massive hairy creatures walking up right through the jungle. And no, it wasn't your dad. Park rangers actually find enormous claw marks gouged into trees at heights no known animal can reach. Some satellite footage keeps picking up heat signatures moving through areas where nothing that large should actually exist. So could giant ground sloths actually still be out there? What if some giant ground sloths did find a way to survive in the deepest parts of the rainforest? Well, the next time you're camping and hear this sound, just remember, it might not be a bear, because this is what the Megatherium sounded like. But honestly though guys, they are extinct, and I'm sure it's just people seeing bears and getting confused, like when you think you see your ex at the grocery store, but it's just another thick mannequin. Got him! Now what if you heard this sound walking in the woods? And no, that wasn't your dad in the bathroom. This creature is the woolly rhino. This thing was built like a bulldozer but dressed like a caveman. A literal two-horn Ice Age rage tank. Except this one had the personality of your hangry ant when somebody eats her leftovers. These manic beasts were stomping around while humans were throwing rocks at them, and somehow, someway, we made it out alive, bro. Our ancestors took down these 4,000 murder carpets with giant toothpicks, and yet we can't figure out how to make it throughout the day without a phone, therapy, and 3 iced lattes. I mean, look at me. I can barely open a pickle jar. These thick beasts ruled the frozen tundra for years, but couldn't handle humans discovering the ancient art of let's all stab it together and have a barbecue. My guy got deleted by some squishies who were arguing probably over who was gonna carry all the spears. Cave paintings show our ancestors hunting these beasts and somehow not getting trampled into caveman pancakes. In 2024, scientists found one perfectly frozen in Siberia with his horn and soft tissue still intact. What if there are still some frozen ones out there that we could bring back? In fact, some scientists are talking about bringing this thing back, and here's where it gets crazy. They plan on using using 14,000-year-old hyena doo-doo. I hope it doesn't turn out to be a crappy situation though. I'm not saying we should clone woolly rhinos, but imagine riding one of these beasts to work. Your commute would definitely be a maximum orange energy when you're mounted on 2 tons of prehistoric rage. Comment woolly if you think we should defrost these furry tanks and see what happens, fam. Do you think unicorns actually ever existed? The answer is yes, and you probably thought they were cute, right? Wrong! The original one looked like it could body slam a side of a truck, then smile while turning your family tree into mulch. This real unicorn was actually a giant rhino called the Elasmotheria. They were also known as the Siberian Unicorn, and they were absolutely terrifying. Forget sparkles, man. This unicorn looked like it escaped from a Viking nightmare. Some researchers suggest certain cave paintings in France show these beasts walking among humans, which is probably how the unicorn myth started anyway. That means your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were dodging these furry tanks. Imagine you're a caveman minding your own business, and suddenly this armored nightmare with a jousting lance for a face comes charging at you. So this means early humans had to try to deal with this thing and run away from this walking nightmare charging at them over 30 miles an hour. Meanwhile, I get winded walking to my car. 13 feet of heavyweight pure destruction with a 6-foot horn that could punch through a car door. It's basically what happens when you give a rhino on steroids, a medieval lance, and zero chill. Your ancestors survived this monstrosity, and you can't handle someone cutting you off in traffic. But what's crazy about this one is that hunters in the remote wilderness are still report findings of massive skulls with giant horns in the Siberian wilderness. So the next time someone says unicorns aren't real, show them this horn-wielding maniac. And no, I'm not talking about me! If you love bacon, you're never gonna eat it after you see this freaky thing. No, not her, this thing. This is the Deodon, also called the pigs from hell. This is what happened when God decided pigs need to be absolutely unhinged. Picture your worst nightmare about meeting a wild boar in the woods. Now make it the size of a small car with teeth like railroad spikes. Before these things went extinct, these hell pigs were running around North America turning everything else into their personal chew toy. We're talking about a 6-foot tall pig with teeth that could crunch through bones like I crunch through potato chips, man. And yes, before you ask, they tasted like bacon, but good luck getting close enough to find out, man. Early mammals took one look at this walking mayhem and said, nah bro, we're just gonna evolve into something else. The Deodon had a skull bigger than a horse and jaws strong enough to bite through a tree trunk. Scientists found one skull that was 3 feet long. That's the size of a small TV! Now these guys weren't rolling around in the mud. They were the apex predators of their time, eating up everything that moved. Scientists found bite marks on fossils from other animals and went, yep, that's definitely hell pig damage. These beasts had such powerful bite force, they could crack open the legs and bones of other large animals just to get to the bone marrow. That's like using a sledgehammer to open a pistachio, except this pistachio is the size of a modern day rhinoceros. And an even more insane fact is that modern day paleontologists aren't even sure if these things were scavengers or active hunters. Like imagine not knowing if a 1,000 pig with bone crushing jaws was eating leftovers or actively coming after you. Either way, man, I'm staying inside on my couch eating chicken nuggets, because if you walked outside and heard the sound, it's too late. And if you heard this in the sky above you, this is too late. Imagine a bird so evil it made pigeons look like pacifists. This thing hunted like a slasher villain with feathers, and if you were alive back then, congrats, you were the snack. This thing was so big it could literally use humans as Uber Eats delivery meals. The Hast eagle was basically what happens when nature decides regular birds aren't terrifying enough and gives one a 2 million year long gym membership. It was like nature's airborne hitman. This winged terror had talons the size of your head and could swoop down to yoink prey right off the ground like they were picking up groceries. New Zealand used to be home to these flying creatures that could treat humans like Happy Meals with legs. Of course it was, bro. New Zealand is basically Australia 2.0. The indigenous people of New Zealand called them Powakai, or Old Glutton. Some legends basically claim that this translates to stay inside or become bird food. We're talking about eagles with 10-foot wingspans that can carry off a grown adult like I carry a whole grocery buggy full of chips. And get this, they only went extinct around 600 years ago, which means someone great-great-great-great-great-grandma probably got dive bombed by one of these savage feathered missiles. Meanwhile, you're scared of a goose that weighs 10 pounds. But hey fam, me too, check this thing out.
Look at him.
The Hast eagle made modern predators look like basic house pets, because at least bears can't drop out the sky and delete you when you go into your lunch break. Today's eagles hunt fish and small mammals. The Hast eagle hunted anything that looked like it had a decent amount of meat on it. And I got a lot, bro. What's really crazy is that the Hast eagle actually adapted to gain 10 to 15 times its original body weight. That's faster than any animal in history. Even my weight gain during quarantine couldn't compare. In comparison, that's like if a chihuahua evolved into a wolf in the time it takes your phone to update. Now, a small descendant of this eagle is still alive today in Australia, looking all innocent while its psycho great-great-grandparents used to be out there playing human DoorDash. So yeah, the next time someone tells you size doesn't matter, remind them that a 2-pound bird evolved into a 40-pound human stature claw machine in record time. It's like someone gave that Pokemon Sparrow 15 levels worth of protein powder and taught it to move human yeet. Now imagine if Shrek's swamp had a final boss. Now give it teeth, make it angry, and shrink it just enough to fit under your bed. You just met Beelzebufo, aka the Devil Frog. And no, this isn't your grandma's garden pond hobby situation. This beast was 16 inches long, weighed 10 pounds, and had a bite force stronger than a wolf. Picture a demon frog the size of a small dog with anger management issues and a taste for baby dinosaurs. This thick amphibian lived in Madagascar and was basically what happens when evolution goes wild. So these things are basically Madagascar's boss fight. Of course it was Madagascar, bro. That place makes Australia look like a petting zoo. Scientists calculated its bite force at 2200 newtons. For comparison, your bite force is about 890 newtons. This frog could bite with over twice your strength. That's like having a tiger chomp down on you. But wait, it gets so much worse too. This thing had armor plating on its head like some kind of medieval battle frog. This hell frog is related to modern Pac-Man frogs, which means it had the same attack anything that moves energy. Except instead of eating crickets, this thing was out here snacking on small velociraptors and compies. And scientists believe it used ambush tactics. Just sitting there looking like a homeless rock until BAM! Some poor baby dinosaur goes to get a drink of water and suddenly the ground opens up and swallows it whole. And get this, the fossils scientists found were probably just teenagers because their skull bones weren't even fully fused yet. So before they went extinct, they were full-grown pit bull-sized adult devil frogs just hopping around terrorizing the entire ecosystem. I think God really said, let's make a frog, and then immediately said, actually, let's make it cursed. And they sounded like this. Imagine you're dehydrated, half delirious, and lost at sea, and suddenly you see a half-fish woman singing at you. Congrats, that's either a mermaid or your brain just giving up. You ever get catfished by a fish? Sailors did for centuries. For many centuries, sailors have sworn they saw beautiful half-woman, half-fish creatures singing by the rocks or swimming in the open seas. They have scales, no legs, and might drag you to your watery death. Plot twist, they were probably just looking at sea cows, and no, not your... You thought I was gonna say mom? Why would I do that, man? I would never say anything about your mom. She's sweet, beautiful, kind, and she lets you watch me. Sea cows are also known as manatees. Manatees are the ocean's least attractive mammals, yet somehow convinced drunk sailors they were seeing supermodels. I mean, thick manatees need love too, bro. But here's where it gets very interesting. Every single culture on Earth has mermaid legends. Vikings called them Margich, which means sea spirit or sea goddess. I think I spit in my throat on that. The Greeks have what they call sirens, and the Caribbean cultures have what they call Aishaya. Ha! Y'all didn't think I could say that. I think I did. And Japan has the Ningyo, which means human fish and is actually closely related to the word ningen, which literally means human. So either an entire planet collectively decided to make up the same story, or there's something in the water that's more terrifying than a substitute teacher who actually read the lesson plan. Of course, scientists say it's our brain seeing human faces in random patterns. Like when you see Jesus in your toast, except it's scary deep sea fish ladies, aliens in murky water. So manatees are definitely real, definitely thick, and definitely not singing and dragging anyone down to their doom. But they do freak out in water like this. Whoa! I mean, kind of like Swifties. Shake it off! So are mermaids real or just thick manatees having an identity crisis? I guess anything's possible, except for my hair coming back. No, they aren't real, but if they were, they would be more like the stuff of nightmares lurking in the deep, waiting for the next confused sailor to make the mistake for something friendly, or well, friendly-ish. What would you do if you heard this sound at night? That's the sound of something that is like a coyote, a blender, and your sleep paralysis demon all in one. You get the Chupacabra. Basically a cryptid with the appetite of meat at an all-you-can-eat buffet. This thing has been draining the blood out of farm animals across Latin America since the 1990s, and nobody knows what the heck it actually is. Picture a lizard-dog hybrid with spikes down its back, glowing red eyes, and a serious attitude problem. Kind of like that school bully who peaked in 6th grade and still thinks stealing lunch money is a career path. The legends actually started in Puerto Rico when farmers kept finding their goats completely drained of blood with weird puncture wounds. No signs of struggle, no missing meat, just dead animals with 2 perfect holes in their necks. This thing's kind of like a vampire, but uglier and with the most deranged table manners. And no, not your The first official sighting described the creature about 4 foot tall, gray-green skin, huge black eyes, and spikes running down his spine. Basically what you get if an alien and a kangaroo had a baby and raised it on energy drinks. But here's where it gets weird. Every country describes it differently. Mexico said it looks like a hairless dog with fangs. Texas claims it's more reptilian with leathery skin. Chile insists it can fly and has bat wings. It's like the Chupacabra has different regional variants, which is either very good marketing or really bad eyewitness testimony. Scientists say most Chupacabra sightings are just mangy coyotes or dogs with skin diseases, or some old creepy white-headed bald dude with a beard. Wait! Bro! But explain this. How does a sick coyote drain all the blood from a 200-pound goat without leaving claw marks? And why do the puncture wounds look surgical instead of animal bites? The weirdest part though, it only showed up after a bunch of UFO sightings in the same areas. Coincidence? Government experience going wrong? Hey, the last few years could have been cursed enough that I'm not saying I do or don't believe. This thing could still be out there somewhere, supposedly terrorizing livestock and giving farmers regular nightmares. So if you're ever in rural Latin America and you hear your goat screaming in the middle of the night, maybe just stay inside. And definitely don't go out to investigate any weird dog-shaped shadow thingy with glowing eyes. Whether it's an alien experiment, interdimensional vampire, or just a really angry hairless dog, one thing's for sure, it's not asking for belly rubs. Have you ever seen a creature that looked like it could headbutt its way out of Minecraft creative mode? That's Draco Rex, a walking medieval weapon with a skull like it's built for boss battles. It looked less like a dinosaur and more like a Pokemon that skipped character development and went straight to final evolution. When scientists discovered this thing in modern times, they were so excited about how dragon-like it looked that they threw all scientific name conventions out the window. The actual scientific name for this thing is Dracorex hogwartia, which literally means Dragon King of Hogwarts. And no, I'm not making this up. It does prove that paleontologists are just as nerdy as everyone else though. This thing had a skull that looked exactly like dragons from medieval paintings. We're talking spikes, horns, and a face that would make Smaug jealous. Medieval people found these skulls and they probably looked at these spiky nightmare fossils and were like, yep, that's definitely a dragon. And they weren't wrong. Draco Rex was basically a real life dragon that just happened to walk on two legs instead of flying around and burning villages. It was about 10 feet long, had razor sharp teeth, and a skull that made it look like it crawled straight out of a fantasy novel. So the next time somebody tells you dragons aren't real, just show them a picture of Draco Rex. And they even sound like a dragon. Because technically dragons did exist. Humans just couldn't figure out how to train them, I guess. And it gets worse from here. If you think walking dragons are impressive, just wait until you meet the flying one. Imagine you're just vibing and the sky glitches and you hear this sound. Wings the size of your house, a beak like a guillotine, and it's eyeing you like you're a Lunchable. This ain't a dragon from your favorite fantasy show. This thing was real, but these didn't breathe fire. It just dropped from the sky and ended careers. Imagine looking up and seeing this massive winged beast circling overhead like something straight out of Game of Thrones, except this ain't CGI. The Pterodon was a flying death lizard that had a 23-foot wingspan and could soar for hours without flapping its wings. That's bigger than a small airplane, bro. When medieval people found these fossils, this is probably what started the flying dragon legends, and some called it a wyvern. You think some farmer peasant in the 1300s dug up a Pterodon skull with that massive crest and 4-foot-long beak and thought, oh, it's just Big Bird? Heck no, bro! They looked at this nightmare fuel and immediately started drawing dragons in their manuscripts. The wing bones, the massive skull, the razor shark beak, everything about Pterodon screams medieval dragon. Even the proportions match perfectly with those old dragon illustrations. So scientists basically confirmed that dragons were real in a way. They were just extinct by the time humans showed up to the party. And if you think these real-life dragon dinosaurs are the craziest thing God ever created, you forgot about the deep sea. You ever look at an animal and think, this can't be real? And I'm not talking about your bro. This thing makes the platypus look like a well thought out design choice. Meet one of creation's biggest design fill, the Helicoprion. Instead of rows of teeth like a normal fish, this thing had a tooth spiral. Literally a buzzsaw just chilling in its lower jaw. Actually, it was called the buzzsaw shark. Scientists still don't fully agree on how it actually used its mouth, and Helicoprion is probably like, I have no idea, bro, but it worked, so I don't question it. Some say it slashed its prey, others think it just spun its food like a Beyblade and prayed for the best. I guess God really said, let's give this shark a mouth that defies all logic and somehow it survived longer than the dinosaurs. Also, let's be real, this thing makes the platypus look like it came out of Apple's design department. Helicoprion, this was Microsoft Paint with the free trial expiring. So this is the ultimate proof that sometimes you can succeed in life with your entire face design being a disaster. Like mine, I guess. And supposedly this is what it sounded like. Imagine going for a swim and the water fights back. Not with waves, with claws the size of your arm. This wasn't some lobster you could eat. This was Helicoprion, 8 foot of prehistoric cash me outside energy.
Catch me outside, how about that?
It didn't swim, it hunted, it dominated. Dragging fish into the abyss so angry like the ocean owed it child support. This 8-foot sea scorpion that ruled the ocean before sharks figured out how to be scary. Its claws alone were bigger than your head, which means this thing could literally give you a haircut you could never recover from. So that's what happened to my hair. Scientists found a fossil claw that was missing a quarter of its length and it was still over a foot long. This thing had massive compound eyes that could track movement from across the ocean seafloor. It was too big to walk on land, so it was stuck in water being a full-time aquatic menace. Meanwhile, modern lobsters at Red Lobster are basically this thing's embarrassing distant cousins who gave up on the intimidation business and chose butter sauce instead. But can you imagine if this thing existed today and you go fishing and this thing decides that your boat looked like a snack? While early fish were just figuring out how to swim in straight lines, Helicoprion was out here perfecting the art of underwater yeet!
Stop it.
The ocean was basically ruled by giant venomous scorpions with unhinged bloodthirst. Modern sharks seem like goldfish compared to these prehistoric nightmares. And if you think an 8-foot venomous sea scorpion is peak horror, wait until you hear about this next one, man. Something massive used to glide through the ancient oceans, and no, it wasn't a submarine. It had flippers like oars, a shell like a bunker, and a vibe like it owned the sea. Not just a sea turtle either. Archelon was more like a floating fortress with an attitude. Let's talk about the real sea tank that made Jaws drop before Jaws ever existed. This thick boy was a sea turtle so massive it makes modern sea turtles look like Happy Meal toys. We're talking about a turtle the size of a 12-foot boat that could probably sink actual boats just by bumping into them. The Archelon had a skull over 2 feet long with a beak that could crack open pretty much anything in the ocean. Modern sea turtles eat jellyfish and seagrass like peaceful ocean hippies. This tank, with an attitude of your mom in a carpool line, ate whatever it wanted, including other sea turtles if they looked at it wrong. I keep talking about their moms are gonna hate me, man. The shell alone was bigger than a king-size bed, and those flippers were the size of surfboards. Imagine being a prehistoric fish swimming along and suddenly the entire ocean floor starts moving because you just woke up a turtle the size of a garage. This massive creature was so big that when it came up to breathe, sailors probably thought they discovered a new island. Sea turtles are supposed to be gentle, peaceful creatures, but when you're the size of a small building, gentle becomes more of a suggestion than a requirement. You know what they say, the bigger the head, the bigger the bite. That's why I can take out a 20-piece chicken McNugget in one bite. If you're swimming in the ocean and see this thing, run fast. This is the Nothasaurus. This thing made sharks look like pet goldfish. It's got the body of a sea serpent, but with the attitude of someone who definitely doesn't understand or care about personal space. Kinda like a crazy Karen who decided to take out her vengeance on the ocean. This thing was long, slim, and built for chaos. Like a snake, a crocodile, and an angry seal all fused into one nightmare. Then give it a body drawn by a 4-year-old with a crayon addiction. It was a water ninja slicing through the ocean with flippers that looked like they were designed for one thing: pouncing on fish, small reptiles, and probably everything else that dared to swim nearby. And here's the scariest part though. This thing didn't just stalk the living things in the water, it also hung out on land, terrorizing anything that was stupid enough to come near it on the beach. On land, it wasn't winning any races though, because it didn't need to. It was basically a slow-moving, overgrown lizard with oversized teeth that will make any dentist cringe. And don't you talk about my teeth. Its teeth and claws could turn a small animal into minced meat faster than I eat chicken nuggets. Imagine trying to outrun something that's slower on land than your grandma trying to catch the bus, but still capable of biting your leg off with one quick snap. So basically a semi-aquatic predator with no boundaries. Like a drunk uncle at a family reunion, but with uglier teeth. And it wasn't overly huge, but big enough to scare the hair off your head. And no, that's not what happened to mine. It was about 10 to 20 feet long, roughly the size of a small bus. And it was thick too, about a ton, meaning if it sat on you, you'd be feeling that for weeks. It was basically a walking, biting, swimming chaos machine with an overbite that will make me look like I have perfect dental hygiene. This predator was faster in water than most of the other monsters, with a neck that could whip around quicker than your Wi-Fi disconnects during the final fight on Fortnite. It was the ultimate ocean chaos agent just waiting to yeet itself at anything that moved. Like when your sister wakes up in the morning and chooses violence for no reason, bro. So yeah, Nothasaurus wasn't just some weird lizard water thing. It was the ocean's version of chaos in a scale suit, biting, yeeting, and terrifying everything in sight. Thankfully, this thing's been deleted from history because we're so spoiled we complain about bad traffic and bad Wi-Fi. And if you think that's crazy, wait till you see the rest of these creatures that make modern animals and predators look like Build-A-Bears. If you think the T-Rex is scary, meet Carcharhontosaurus. Say that 3 times fast. Carcharhontosaurus, Carcharhontosaurus. Sounds like a Wi-Fi password. Anyway, this thing was T-Rex's taller, meaner cousin who never got the fame it deserves, and it sounded so much scarier than it looks too. This beast was basically the shark of land dinosaurs. In fact, its name actually means shark-toothed lizard. Ayo, that's what they used to call me in 3rd grade. It had the teeth the size of bananas and an aura that said, I don't hunt for food, I hunt for fun. Its jaw power was stronger than that of a crocodile, and the teeth were sharp enough to shred through any prey like a hot knife through butter. Only if that butter was the size of a small truck and being chased by a hangry predator. It was about 40 feet long, roughly the size of a small school bus, and weighed about 8 tons. And here's the thing, this beast was fast even though it was thick.
Why he's thick?
Not cheetah fast, but fast enough to make lions look like they're lagging. But just like the T-Rex, it looked like it skipped arm day at the gym for an eternity.
She was a fairy.
Here's what's even crazier though. Scientists think it was more of a lurker, waiting in ambush to crush prey with a signal, snap! But Carcharhontosaurus wasn't just a big scary guy in the yard. It was built like a skyscraper, moved like a track star, and bit like it had beef with everything. A pure chaos engine in dino form with teeth that could shred your SUV and a sound that could vibrate your bones. Sounds like your dad snoring after 3 chili dogs. If you think today's crocodiles are scary, meet Dacosaurus. A crocodile that wished it was a mosasaur that ended up with identity problems but was still extremely terrifying. Its name literally means biter lizard, which is a polite way of saying if it got its teeth on you, then you would turn into spaghetti. It's got the body of a crocodile on steroids, but with the head that kind of looked like a dolphin, with crocodile teeth. Except that this dolphin turned even more evil and joined a death cult. Aerodynamic, but psychotic. Its thick skull and powerful jaws made it an underwater chaos agent. It had teeth so big and sharp they could cut through a boat and turn a fish into a blood smoothie faster than you can texture bestie. It was built like a tank, weighing around a ton and long enough to give your average SUV a run for its money. It was faster than most marine predators, blitzing through the water like a predator missile. If sharks had nightmares, this thing was in them doing backflips. Imagine if a crocodile and a killer whale had a baby, and that baby grew up and decided becoming one of the most ocean's biggest bullies. That's Dacosaurus. It was only about 20 to 25 feet long, but it didn't need to be big. It needed to be fast enough and violent enough to make sure there wasn't anything left to catch again. And if you think today's sharks are intimidating, just remember, this guy was the ocean's boss, running the underwater streets with teeth bigger than your ego. Dacosaurus made crocs and sharks look like emotional support animals, man. Imagine walking through the forest and hearing something crunching leaves behind you, you turn around and there it is. The scariest thing you've ever seen in your life. Big, mean, and angry. And no, not your 10 feet of armored centipede nightmare casually slithering like it pays rent in your spine. There's oversized and then there's Arthropod. This wasn't your average house centipede. It was a mobile panic attack with legs. This was a floorboard rattling, soul leaving your body level of disrespect. It didn't bite, it conquered. And before you ask, no, it wasn't venomous because it didn't need to be. When you're built like a demonic subway train with legs, you don't need poison. You are the hazard. If I ever saw this thing in real life, I'd bite myself first to speed up the process. It was so big that birds couldn't even carry it off. They probably just watched it go by and say, yeah, I'm good, fam. And the craziest part, it wasn't even a predator. It was a vegetarian.
Another reason to be vegan.
This nightmare stick didn't want meat. It just wanted leaves, but still had the body count vibes of something that eats dreams. This thing had so many legs it could moonwalk, two-step, and chase you all at once. The exoskeleton looked like it could take a shotgun blast and reply with a side eye. This thing mostly lived in swamps, which means it blended in with the mud, the logs, the environment until the ground started moving and a wall of 100 legs started slithering towards you like a glitch in real life. Arthropod was less bug and more manifestation of panic. Every inch of his body said, yeah, scream louder, it won't help. So the next time you see a tiny house centipede and feel brave, just remember, this is the toddler version. If this creature existed today, pest control would need holy water and a therapist. There's a creature that lived in the ocean so creepy that scientists still can't fully explain it. It had spinning jaws, alien eyes, and face arms designed to grab and destroy, and somehow it was real. Animal Licaris, which literally means weird shrimp. Which is wild because that's like calling a demon mildly unpleasant. It was a prehistoric paper shredder with googly eyes and grabby claws. This thing looked like the universe had a stroke while designing a Pokemon and just sent it out anyway. It had two hooked arms coming out of his face like crab tongues with a grudge. Each one lined with spikes like it was built specifically to snap, crush, and ruin. It didn't bite you, it collected you and then blended you into soup. The mouth was a rotating ring of death, a full spinning disc of razor sharp blades like a fidget spinner of doom. And once you're inside that thing, there's no exit strategy. It didn't just bite you, it turned you into a smoothie. You didn't become food, you became a memory. And it had this freaky periscopic eyes. Imagine you're trying to hide and it's peeking around a rock like, I see you. It grew to about 3 feet tall, but don't let the size fool you. That's big enough to ruin your afternoon and your family legacy. And it was fast too. It zipped through water like it was allergic to hesitation. Imagine a shrimp, but it's angry, streamlines, and had a license to kill. It was all muscle, rage, and chaos, bro. If I saw something like that swimming towards me, I think I'd drown on purpose to avoid the trauma, man. And here's the part that breaks your brain. For years, scientists thought it was 3 different animals. The arms, the eyes, the mouth each got classified as a separate species. Because no one wanted to believe one creature had all that horror built in. Animal Licaris wasn't just an animal. It was a design so wrong it somehow worked. Basically a cursed sea bug that looks like a shrimp, hunted like a human, and ate like me at the buffet.
Served up with the latest
So next time you eat a shrimp, just remember, this one came before, and it had spinning jaws and claw arms, and it wanted to eat you. If you hear this sound, it's too late. Meet Andrewsarchus, 3 feet of bone-crushing jaw. So we don't even know exactly what this thing looked like, since no full body was ever found, but yet, somehow, it's considered one of the most terrifying land animals to ever exist. Because when your head alone is over 3 feet long, you're not an animal, you're a warning. Its mouth was lined with thick, crushing teeth, not for slicing, but for smashing, pulverizing, flattening whatever was dumb enough to breathe nearby. So it didn't chew, it processed. Like me at the Golden Corral, bro. Some say it scavenged, others say it's hunted, but let's be real. I think it didn't care. It ate what it wanted, dead or alive. Based on the skull and what it was packing, it was probably built like a bulldozer in a fur coat. Thick neck, heavy body, short temper. Kinda like you said. We imagined it to be a boar, a bear, and a bad attitude had a love child, but it wasn't fast. It was a slow, stomping, bone-shattering enforcer that didn't chase prey, it cornered it. So next time you think lions or bears are scary, just remember, Andrew Sarkis existed just to make sure those animals never got too confident. If T-Rex had a weirder older cousin that hit the gym too hard and never learned personal space, you get this scary beast, Acrocanthosaurus. Now don't leave yet because this just looks like another dinosaur, because it isn't. It's so much worse, bro. It was a walking spine rack with murder in its stride, and it looked like it had beef with gravity itself. It stood over 11 feet tall at the hips, ran on 2 legs, and had a ridge of massive spikes down its back like it lost a bet with a porcupine. And these weren't just for show. This thing looked like it spawned mid-glitch and the game developers just left it in. Bro walked around like a Stegosaurus was wearing him as a cape. And while it wasn't the fastest, it didn't need to be, because being built like a meat grinder with a mohawk, you can take your time. It didn't just kill, it turned prey into regret. And if you were a smaller dinosaur in the area, your options were play dead, get dead, or die tired. And unlike T-Rex, this thing had arms with actual grabbing power, big enough to pull things in, hold them down, or just slap you for looking at it wrong. T-Rex had baby arms, Acro came with a full arm subscription, bro. Let's talk about the spine ridge, because this thing's back looked like it was hiding a second dinosaur inside. Was it for muscle, heat regulation, intimidation? Nobody knows, but it looked cool. It made Acro look bigger, and it probably made other predators say, yeah, never mind, I'll eat something less horrifying. It was a walking billboard for I don't need speed if I have power and trauma. Now this wasn't a hunter that played with his food, it hunted with a purpose. And here's the thing, people love talking about T-Rex like that was the final boss, but Ankylosaurus was the prequel villain, man. Built bigger, stocked with spine blades, and fueled by pure unbothered dominance. The only creature that looked like it walked out of a horror movie trailer halfway through production and just decided to keep going. You ever had a nightmare so bad that it leaves you sweating in your sleep and you wake up only to realize it was real, except this nightmare crawled all over you? Welcome to Hallucigenia. This isn't a creature, it's a biological typo. It's not scary because it'll eat you, it's scary because it shouldn't exist. Designed by a sleep-deprived toddler with access to God's 3D printer, named by scientists who stayed up for weeks drinking too much caffeine. So here's a rundown of this creepy thing. It's about the length of a paperclip, but don't let the size fool you. This thing had full horror movie energy in miniature mode. It had a head, if you want to call it that. It looked like it was pasted on from another creature's design file. It had a mouth, maybe eyes, but everything about it said, don't worry about how I function, just know I exist to scare you, bro. This thing is so weird it left scientists confused for years. Scientists literally spent years trying to figure out which side was up. They thought the legs were tentacles, they thought the spikes were legs. They even put the mouth on this thing wrong at one point. And it gets so much freakier, just wait. This thing walked around on stilts with needle spine stabbing straight up from its back like it was wearing a medieval bear trap as a backpack. Hallucigenia didn't bite, so this thing wasn't a predator. It didn't have claws or speed or venom. It had pure chaos energy and a body designed like a bad dream after Taco Bell. It staggered across the seafloor like it had just spawned into the wrong simulation. Every movement said, I don't know why I'm here either, bro, because sometimes nightmares crawl. So the next time you think nature knows what it's doing, just remember there was once a creature covered in spikes, walking on stilts, and had a head like an accident, and it thrived, just like Twitter users. There's a bear so massive, so overpowered, and so fast it made modern grizzly look like Build-A-Bears. It didn't climb trees, it didn't fish in rivers, it hunted like it was trying to settle generation trauma. Meet the short-faced bear. The definition of you can run, but you'll still die tired, bro. This thing wasn't a bear, it was a muscle claw with fur and a murder license. 6 feet at the shoulder, 13 feet tall when it stood up, and weighed over a ton, but with long legs built for pure speed. Basically 13 feet of nope, could run 40 miles an hour and maul you for sport. Its face was flat and wide and built for crushing bone like it was chewing bubblegum. Its jaws could snap through your spine, but it didn't just rely on strength. This thing had range. The long limbs meant it could chase, tackle, and dismantle prey across open land. Predators ran, prey ran, nothing could survive, bro. It had claws the size of steak knives and paws that could fold you like laundry, man. And don't think hiding would help. Its nose is basically GPS for blood. And here's the most disrespectful part. There's a debate if it was a predator or a scavenger, which is wild because either way, you were still ending up inside of it. Hunted, stolen, chased, cornered, didn't matter. The result was always the bear's gonna win. And yes, these things were around when humans were here, which means somebody's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather had to fight off these furry demons with pointy toothpicks. So yeah, modern bears are scary, but the short-faced bear was the original rage tank because sometimes nature doesn't build dominance, it builds violence and lets it run loose. If you think raptors in Jurassic Park were scary, wait till you see this freak of nature. This raptor wasn't from the movies. This was the final boss version. Bigger, meaner, smarter. And it came with claws that could disembowel you before your brain finished processing the fear. Meet Utahraptor, a 6-foot-tall razor blade raptor that makes all other raptors look like plushies. Utahraptor was over 20 feet long and didn't hunt chickens. It was a lot more hangry. This thing was basically a murder turkey on performance enhancers. It had a sickle-shaped claw on each foot, 9 inches long, for slashing throats and ruining family trees. Its legs were built for speed and its arms built for grip. These things were highly intelligent too. So yeah, it wasn't just strong, it was smart. It could strategize with ambush tactics and calculate violence. The whole body was made for maximum disrespect. Long tail for balance, powerful legs for pouncing, and a mouthful of serrated teeth made to ruin flesh. Oh yeah, and some people actually believe it came with feathers, which makes it so much worse. Because now you're getting shredded by something that looks like it escaped a cursed bird sanctuary. Imagine being mauled by a 6-foot parrot with rage issues. And it wasn't just a one-hit killer. It was a bleed you out type. It hit you fast, deep, and often, then wait while you realize you've been open like a zipper. Kinda how felines do today. Utahraptor wasn't just another dinosaur, it was a tactical problem with claws. So yeah, Jurassic Park gave you raptors, but this thing was the director's unedited cut. Because sometimes nature doesn't just give you a predator, it gives you a walking nightmare with feathers. If you're swimming in the ocean and see this freaky thing, run fast. Some creatures are built to hunt, some are built to survive. This one was built like a prank. It had a tiny body, stubby legs, and a neck so long it could sip boba tea from 2 zip codes away. Meet Titanoboa, the this doesn't look right kind of thing that terrorized the ocean. Titanoboa looked like someone was designing a creature, hit the stretch button on the wrong part of the body, and the computer crashed. Its neck was over 10 feet long and its body was barely half that. That's not a proportion, that's a threat to physics. Bro looked like a snake wearing a lizard cosplay. And it wasn't flexible either, it was a stiff clunky noodle. If it wanted to look at something behind it, it had to rotate its entire existence. And here's the worst part, no one knows what it's really trying to be. Was it a swimmer, a fisherman, a cursed jungle puppet? Who knows? It's still freaky, bro! Its skull was packed with sharp teeth, so yeah, it was definitely doing some damage if it bit you. It was the biological version of a giraffe that had flippers. Tall, awkward, and one good tackle away from extinction. Titanoboa wasn't built to win, it was built to confuse, the kind of creature that makes you want to pause and go, what exactly were you supposed to be doing here, my guy? Not scary, not smart, just long and freaky. Now there's a creature scarier than a T-Rex and raptors. Meet the original rage-powered meat shredder that killed with speed, saw blade teeth, and a skull that doubled as a weapon. Here is Allosaurus. It didn't hunt because it needed to eat, it hunted because violence was the only language it spoke fluently. 30 feet long, 2 tons of built-in trauma, and a face that looked like it was designed in a weapon factory. It wasn't a tank, it wasn't armored, it was fast, light, and reckless. This thing didn't wait to ambush. It lunged, bit, backed off, and came in again like a prehistoric blender on a loop. The bite wasn't as strong as other apex predators, but it didn't matter because Allosaurus didn't just bite down. It bit, yanked, and tore chunks out of anything that moved, kind of like a shark. Imagine getting bit by a hacksaw with legs. And its head was built like a battering ram. Some scientists actually think it used a skull like a blade, slamming its jaws into prey like a living guillotine. So yeah, this thing didn't just come with teeth, it came with momentum. Allosaurus had actual arms with claws, not with those sad little T-Rex twigs. It could grab, slash, and hold prey while turning everything else below it into meat confetti. This wasn't a strategic killer. This is a prehistoric road rage with claws. It went after bigger prey than itself too. Just went full berserk mode and let the skull do the talking. Not the biggest, not the smartest, just fast, unstable, and aggressively hands-on. So the next time someone brings up raptors or T-Rex like they were the scariest, remind them that Allosaurus is already out here doing the job first, but messier, louder, and with way more violence per step. The original middleweight monster with final boss behavior. If you think the scariest creatures walked tall, roared loud, and chased down their victim, then you haven't met this low-crawling death machine with steak knife teeth and a sail on its back. This is the Metrodon, the swamp-born bite specialist that didn't chase food, it ambushed and waited for it to bleed out. This thing wasn't a dinosaur. It was a land crocodile with a built-in sword arm panel and way too much anger for something shaped like a garden lizard. It sat in the mud like a reptilian landmine, motionless, silent, and when something wandered too close, snap, gone, deleted from the ecosystem faster than I eat chicken nuggets. It had a mouth full of serrated steak knives and a jaw designed to unmake skeletons. The bite wasn't just strong, it was disrespectful. The top teeth curved down like hooks, bottom jaw unhinged like it was built to embarrass small animals. That's not a mouth, that's a biological paper shredder, bro. And let's talk about that giant fan-shaped bone structure on its back. Nobody knows exactly what it did, but it looked cool, kind of like me with a mohawk. Scientists think the cell could be for regulating temperature, attracting mates, intimidating rivals. Maybe all of it, who knows? Or maybe it was just there to say, look how unnecessarily scary I am. Either way, it worked, because if something crawled towards you with a 6-foot fin sticking out your back and murder in its eyes, you're not asking questions, you're leaving. The Metrodon had short legs, heavy steps, and an attitude of something that doesn't run because it didn't need to. Its body was thick, armored, and with those stubby little legs that stay low to the ground. Hey, that's gonna be my excuse now. Basically a mobile jaw trap that also had a built-in billboard screaming, try me. And despite whatever cheap toy company says, it's not a dinosaur. It was more closer to mammals than raptors. But honestly, who cares? It could have still folded you like a lawn chair. So it didn't have speed, didn't have fight, but it had jaws, power, and a whole lot of I woke up angry. Like when your mom wakes you up for school. Now, if you think the big dinosaurs are the scary ones, then you haven't met this flying chicken with sharp teeth and talons, the attitude of a goose on a Red Bull.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
This is the Microaptor. The tiny version of your worst nightmare with feathers and an aptitude bigger than your uncle at Thanksgiving.
What?
This thing wasn't majestic and it wasn't cute. It had wings on its arms and legs with the confidence of a full-grown raptor. Microaptor could glide between trees like a little ninja gremlin with teeth and then drop out the sky like a tiny T-Rex with feathers, and it was freaky. This little terror was a master glider, basically the feathered version of a squirrel on steroids. Flying, stalking, and ready to attack anything it could rip apart. Oh, it didn't just glide either. It spent a lot of time stalking the ground, waiting for the perfect moment to snack on whatever was too slow to escape. And if this thing landed on your back, you wouldn't even have time to scream. You just feel the pain with feathers. Hey, why does this thing remind me of Chicken Jockey, bro? Just like its older brothers, it had razor-sharp curved teeth for ripping and slicing. And yes, it had those sharp little claws larger raptors had, designed for climbing, slashing, and ruining someone's legacy. Even though it was small, it had the ferocity of a predator twice its size, kind of like your grandma's chihuahua. It was here to glide in, hit you, and vanish like a prehistoric hit and run. This tiny flying chaos agent was faster than you think. Wings that made it look like it heading to a disco party, but teeth and claws ready to crash in and ruin your day. So yeah, maybe your Microaptor wasn't just some tiny bird wannabe. It was a feathered nightmare, wings spread wide, claws ready, and an attitude bigger than most dinosaurs. And if you think geese today are bossy, just remember, this tiny terror used to rule the treetops, and you wouldn't be safe from it either. If you think saber-toothed teeth belong to cats, then you haven't met this prehistoric nightmare that looked like a reptile and hit like a land torpedo. This is Gorgonops, the saber-faced predator that didn't sneak, it charged. If a saber-toothed tiger and a lizard had a kid during an apocalypse, you get this thick beast. This thing had fangs like daggers, eyes like a serial killer, and a posture that screamed, "I don't hunt because I'm hungry, I hunt because I'm angry because I look like this." Gorgonops wasn't a dinosaur, and it wasn't a mammal either. It was somewhere in between in that gray area where nightmares get made. This thing looks like it spawned before rules were invented. Gorgonops wasn't some slow, cold-blooded swamp creature. It had fur, speed, and forward-facing eyes because it didn't hope you died. It made sure you did. It had a jaw that opened wide enough to make snakes jealous, and inside were two oversized canine teeth designed to end you before you could figure out where the pain came from. Not just long, not just sharp, curved sabers made to puncture lungs, necks, and your last ounce of hope. One bite and you weren't dying instantly because Gorgonops didn't do clean kills. It had forward-facing eyes. You know what that means? Predator mode, depth perception, and chase accuracy. It didn't just lunge at prey, it tracked it. It wasn't some dumb lizard flailing around. It calculated and knew when to strike, how hard, and exactly where to put the teeth. For a while, it was the top predator. Not because it was big, but because it was fast, aggressive, and absolutely unbothered. If dinosaurs are organized, Gorgonops was the dude in the corner sharpening knives just in case someone breathed too loud. So the next time you see a prehistoric lineup and wonder who started the drama, it was this thing with fangs longer than your fingers and a walk that said, "Try me. I dare you." And this last one is the scariest of all. But before I tell you what it is, guys, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me out. Are you ready? Oh yeah, welcome to the fam, bestie. So if the Sea Eater is the ocean's final boss, this next one is the final chapter. Not just of the sea, of everything. While the Sea Eater devours the physical world, Cthulhu breaks your mind before your body even has time to scream. He doesn't swim, he sleeps in the deep, ancient black abyss of the Pacific. And when he wakes up, game over. When you're in the ocean on a clear blue day and the sky turns black out of nowhere, you just awaken Cthulhu. And when he does awaken, not apocalypse, not fire and brimstone, just silence. Your mind snaps like a glow stick. Cities crumble without warning, oceans boil in place. You won't run, you won't scream, you'll just see him. And that's enough to end your entire existence from the inside out. Cthulhu is a massive cosmic creature that is dragon-like with an octopus face. He has the wings like a fallen angel and a voice that speaks straight into your brain. Not words, just madness. Imagine a squid had a baby with your nightmares and then fed it anxiety for 1,000 years. He's been asleep chilling beneath the Pacific Ocean ready to be awakened. And here's what's even more terrifying. If he dreams of a person, they go crazy. Artists paint him without even knowing why. Poets write in languages that don't exist and sailors hear whispers call them to the deep. But here's the terrifying truth. Cthulhu doesn't hate us. He doesn't even know we exist. We're ants arguing over TikTok clout while a cosmic god rolls over in his sleep. So the next time you feel a chill down your spine for no reason, or you dream of a deep water and distant voices, yeah, he's thinking of you. Some say Cthulhu comes from the planet Saturn. I guess it's better than Uranus. And if you somehow make it through all of that without crying into your snorkel, congrats, you finally earned yourself a comfort monster. And if you're gonna go swimming in the ocean and get swallowed, you might as well do it with your own personal cryptid. Here's the bloop. The link's in the description. I made it just for you guys. Oh yeah, you might want to check out this since I made it just for you. One more question. Ready to go swimming?